Right on. We're back.
We're back.
Yeah,
It's been a week.
it has.
Goes fast.
Yeah, it does. I look forward to getting together every week. It's good to, we were kind of talking about this before, but it's good accountability and just fun. Like I've had a good time just coming and chatting. It's fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just good during the week too. Something will happen. We put something together in your mind and it's like, oh, we get to talk about that. Or I got to text that over to Matt.
Yeah.
Just fun.
Yeah, it has been. And it's been interesting. I feel like as we've talked about things like back and forth, there's a lot of like, you read about success principles being similar, but like even as we've talked about stuff and like text stuff back and forth, like we've had the same things happen, like
Yeah.
it's just those principles, or it's just confirmation that those principles are true and work, and it's fun.
It is cool.
Yeah.
I posted something last night. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but just Kira and I were talking about success and at least our personal success and how really, like, we're still pretty young. We have a lot that we want to do in the world, not success-wise, but just go out and see the world, learn cultures, people, everything. And my cousin got on. He's like, hey, something that's really important is to write it down, and even write down the pitfalls and how to overcome those. Like, it's cool. Like,
Yeah.
writing it down like we talked about last week, and we never updated this board, but write it down.
Yeah. It's so important. I even had some things that you sent me some stuff that you'd written down, and like it's kind of cool to look back and see that. And I've kind of I wish I would have kept stuff from like 10 years ago or whatever, like maybe all along. Like that's I guess that's probably the value of journaling. I'm terrible at journaling.
Yeah, me too.
But I wish that I was better at that, just so I could look back and see that. One thing I have done is kept like used to be like a little pocket calendar type thing that I would write in like day-to-day stuff, but also like just notes and goals and stuff in the back of it. And it's cool to look back and see that. I've done more in my phone now, but I've never really thought about journaling as like, because I'm like, who would want to read about, nobody's going to care about my life when I get older, which is probably false, because I read my grandparents' journals and stuff, and that's pretty cool. But even just to look back over 5 years or something like that would be a lot of fun to kind of see and think about.
Yeah. Like I've written stuff down of what we've wanted to achieve, but really no day-to-day stuff. In fact, if my posterity ever goes back and reads it, it's going to be intermingled with fiction, because it's like, I'm saying things that we've actually did in that day and things that we want to achieve in the future. And so they're going to be so confused. They're like, I don't get this. Like, you made $100 today, but then it also says that you own an apartment complex. And I was like, wait, those are two different things. But
yeah,
it's just interesting.
It is. I
texted that to you, and then to my brother, and he's like, that's got to be in a book somewhere. Like, it's interesting. So I guess context.
Yeah.
My wife found just this kind of journal that I used to do, and I would write down my day, but I would intermingle it with what I wanted my day to be in the future. And eerily similar to my days today. And it was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Weird though to read it and be like, holy crap, that is my day today. Now obviously some of it's not, but a lot of it was.
Well, I was reading through it and I was like, oh my heck, like serious, like it really was like,
very
a lot of the things that you wanted to do, you are now doing.
Yeah, it's weird.
And like it's cool.
But never would have thought how we got here either. So I had those things in my mind, what we wanted to do and achieve. Still have a lot more. There's a lot more that I haven't done. And if I look back, I'd be like, well, I've had way more failure than success.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny to look back and be like, the road traveled brought me to what I wanted 10 years ago. So interesting.
Yeah.
So something for people to think about. Like, once you write a goal down, it's going to evolve. and that's okay. Like, let it. And life might put you in a different situation to get to the place that you're going to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, like I was thinking about this with when you sent me that, and then also some of the, like I've looked back just in the last few years that I've kept records I could look back on and seen some similarities, same kind of things, you know, that you're like, oh, cool, look at this. We wrote this 3 years ago. And
yeah,
but it's kind of interesting to think about, like, yeah, that was a goal that we put down, but it was probably part of us all along. Like, you know what I mean? A desire that we had all along or whatever, you know, like just, it wasn't something out of the blue. It's kind of something that is like part of us maybe, or something. I don't know, maybe that's weird, but just something that, like, one thing that we had was we wanted to build a house in this certain area, you know, and we wrote that down. It's coming to fruition now, you know, which we never, the way that it's coming to, we never knew that it was going to happen that way, or how it would happen. But that was something that we, even though I had written it down a few years ago, like for the last probably 7 or 8 years, longer than that, we kind of always had that in the back of our mind as something we would want. And not necessarily like something like, hey, we're, you know, I don't know. It's just, it's interesting that we think goals are tangible things that we write on a piece of paper, when really they're maybe desires that we have subconsciously or something. I don't know.
No, I like that a lot, because it shows that when you wrote it down, it was intentional. You know, I think intentional goals are really important. You know, we could just throw something random on a paper, but if that's not ingrained in us, we might not be working subconsciously towards that. So if it's in your subconscious or in your conscious, and then you write it down, and then it's a straight arrow. With no obstacles.
And maybe the writing it down is like that. You know, it's further down the path. So maybe the writing it down is, we think of that as the beginning of the goal, but actually we've had that as a goal for a long time subconsciously. The writing down is just part of the manifestation process or something. I don't know, maybe like a step along the way or something that. So like if we write them down, write everything down now, don't wait for 5 years, because writing it down now helps that process move along. I don't know. I have no idea.
And what people write down, what we write down, if it's intentional, it probably has been in your mind for a while. You know, you and your wife talked about it for a long time before it was like, hey, now let's
not just random. So
that's cool. I like that a lot.
It is cool. Yeah, it's fun to think about. It's way fun. But, you know, another, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but another thought that I had, it's interesting how, just like you were saying, throughout the week, you know, as I'm doing personal development, and I know that, you know, we've talked about this, that you feel the same way too. Just things kind of pop up that it's like, hey, that might be something to talk about, you know. Something that I've kind of thought about over the last little bit is like money habits. And money habits, so kind of the goal of the podcast here is for people to find fulfillment in their lives, whether, you know, and a lot of times that might create somebody to need to change, whether that's a business or a job, or, you know, they're not finding fulfillment where they're at, which is something we've both done, you know, and probably multiple times. But there's certain, you know, so we get people asking us a lot how to do that. We've talked a lot about like the money aspect, or not the money aspects, but the mindset aspects, and kind of the, you know, we've talked quite a bit about the, you know, just mindset, I guess, has been a big part of it, you know, writing down those goals, figuring out what you really want to do, and that kind of stuff. One thing that we consciously had to do when we were going to make that change is figure out some money things, you know. I mean, there was going to be some financial changes coming up.
No, when you say change, that's going from a full-time job with some side things to.
Yeah, and we've done it a couple times. You know, we went from one business, you know, being fully involved in one business, to another business, that we wanted to pursue full time. That one we had kind of built the second business as a side hustle, and then got it to a point to where we felt comfortable stepping away from the first business.
Yeah.
And then, we also had a situation where we stepped away, and there again, I say we, because it's always me and my wife together as a team. We stepped away from me being having a full-time job to pursuing some businesses there. That one was a little bit different than the first time because we hadn't built another side hustle to match that income.
Yeah.
So I hope that's, maybe that's confusing, but I think there's a few different ways that people can go about it from a financial perspective. Say they're kind of taking that step into the unknown, or they see something that they have a desire to pursue. There's kind of a few different ways that people can do that financially, maybe, and feel a little bit more comfortable than just jumping into it. That being said, it's so hard because it's a contradiction too, where it's like, well, you have to, and this goes for any business or anything, is, well, you have to plan and figure it out and get all the information you can. And the other side of it is you just have to jump in and do it, even though you don't know all the answers, and so there's definitely some back and forth on that too. But
so probably some individualization in all of that, but also some general principles that we can follow to just maximize our potential for success.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, and I think so. I think a couple of ways, and there's probably more than this, but the couple of ways that we went about making that shift from a financial standpoint, the first one being create a side hustle, and this goes right into the cash calf philosophy of you're in a job or a business that you want to move into something else, start a side business, grow that up to where you can kind of cover your expenses or at least a portion of them, and move into that. Kind of the other one that we've done is just stacking cash, and I've heard of quite a few people doing that, whether it's, and here we're getting into finances, and so this is by no means financial advice. Everybody's got to kind of figure this out for themselves, but we had the opportunity where we could flip a few houses, stack some cash away, and then say, okay, we feel comfortable now that we've got that little bit of a safety net where we can step away and start pursuing this other business that way, and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you've had any. I mean, you've had quite a few cash calves, side hustles, and then grown them to where you can move into other things and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's been our main, I guess you could say, kind of the, I don't know the word to say, but that's been our main thing that we've done in order to move into other things. So start with something small, with the time that you have, grow it, make it efficient, get the proper organization intact to allow it to scale, and then at some point you can step away from something else or allow that other thing to scale while you're working on the other. But like you had said, it's essentially that cash calf philosophy of just start it small, let it grow, let it cash flow a little bit. Now we can focus on something else, and that it's worked really well for us. But a few times we've started something and we've gone into it a little ways and we go, hey, this actually isn't what we want to do. And it's been nice to start small and to figure out that's not what we want to do, than to give up everything and jump in fully to something that we found out later that we didn't want to do. Or we'll get in and we go, hey, this actually just doesn't seem sustainable, so let's just not do it. Let's be done with it.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, it's smart, right? I mean, you learn so much by starting out that way. We talk about jumping in and collecting all the information. Well, if you're starting off small as a side hustle, then you can gather all that. What's this, you kind of get your feet wet, kind of move into that a little bit and be able to know really the sustainability, like you're saying, or whatever.
I don't know who wrote it, but there's a book called The Lean Startup. And I love the idea, the philosophy. Like, how many restaurants do we see that spend $1 million, they hop in, and within 6 months they go broke?
Yeah.
It's really sad. Like, you never want to see that. But then there's also some others that they kind of start small in this little obscure part of town with only a few tables, and then they go to a bigger location, and then they continue to move it up, and then they've scaled. They've started out small, grown that customer base, figured out their recipes, and then they go big. And that's I love that idea, because that's something that it's worked for us. Seen it work for several other people, and to me, it's kind of a risk tolerance thing. We don't want to just. Now there are people that do this, but just quit their job today, figure it out tomorrow. I don't have that kind of risk.
Yeah, and we kind of did it both ways at different points. There was pros and cons of each. The first time that we kind of switched up our career and our vision and our goals was that we side hustled, moved into another business, and like you're saying, it works great. Being able to do that, we kind of knew the sustainability. One of the downsides of that was now you're growing, we were growing two businesses, and both businesses were growing. So, there kind of gets a point, where you have to maybe, some people, I think a lot of this, you brought up a really good point, is risk tolerance. It's so personal to know how to go into all of this kind of stuff, what you can handle, what you want your lifestyle to be, how much time do you want with your family, how much time do you want to spend working, what kind of, there's just so many variables that I think it's really important that people understand themselves a little bit before they, kind of start doing some of this stuff. But so that's kind of where we, the first time that's what we did is we had the side business, moved it into our full-time income and business. The second time was kind of, it was a little bit harder to have two focuses.
Yeah.
And so that's where we ultimately made the decision just to kind of, like you say, quit today and figure it out tomorrow. With that though, we did do planning to make sure that it wasn't just, jump out there and do nothing. We had a plan to put some money aside and that kind of stuff, to where it's like, well, if we don't figure this out within a year or 2 years, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important point too, is, finding out the money habits to get out of the paycheck to paycheck situation or mentality, and cause that's tough. Like it's a very limited situation. But we were lucky enough to have some assets that we could sell and stack some money and kind of move into it that way. So
it's so tough when you're in that situation. If you're going to say that success is, let's say, comfortability, or a certain size house, or, you're in a certain size house and you want different vehicles, you want more time with your family, it's tough to look at it and go, okay, if we give up some of this stuff, like some of the, say, the house and the cars, sell the house and we can go rent for 6 months, and we sell the cars and we buy older vehicles. It's tough to do that, because you look at it and you go, well, now I'm not successful anymore. I was in this house and now I'm not, and I was in a better vehicle and now I'm not. But if you take everything that you've learned and then you take that cash and you put it into something, you have all your own personal knowledge and experience. You could dump everything that you have right now. Could you get it back? Like, yeah. You've done it once. You have all that knowledge. You can do it all again.
And probably in multiples.
Exactly.
And maybe this is a stupid thing to say, but that discomfort, like, because that's kind of the situation that we're in now. We're like, let's, we had houses to sell. We had, we had some rental properties. We had some houses that we flipped, or, I don't like the word flip, that we fixed up and sold. I don't know, whatever. I heard a term for it the other day. We redeveloped. Was that it? I can't remember anyway. But we flipped a couple houses.
Repurposed.
Well, it was like, I really liked it too. Like, there's land development, and then I think it was like redevelopment or something,
Yeah.
Anyway, doesn't really matter. We flipped them.
Yeah.
I'll just anyway. Ouch. Which I don't know why that's such a bad. I don't know. It's kind of sometimes in real estate that's almost like a cuss word maybe, but I don't know. I flipped houses, and I'm proud of it. Yeah. I did it.
You put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, we did. And all of that experience has helped us with the business that we're in now. So I mean, nothing. I mean, that's kind of a side note, but nothing. But we did. We sold. We sold those things, and we're renting. A little place, and it's like, it's not our ideal, but that being said, within the next couple of years, I think we'll be in the spot that we always dreamed of being. We'll hit that goal of wanting to be on the piece of property we want, having the house that we want. And so, taking a couple steps back got us to where we could kind of take those steps forward. Whereas if we didn't before, I don't know that we ever would have.
Yeah.
So it's just so.
It's all through a lens, because if you were to put your assets on a graph and you were to just say success is assets, every time that you've sold something, and when you sold your house to move into rent, your assets just went up.
Yeah.
Because, your cash, let's say cash. Yeah. If you're saying cash is success, your cash has gone up every single time. So if you look at on that graph, it's all good. If we're going to say that success is only being in a house that we own, well, then the graph's going to look different, but that doesn't.
Or being in a 6,000 square foot house or an 8,000 or 10, it's
none of that.
Different.
None of that matters. Like, that's what's kind of fun about this is when someone just instantly thinks of success, they think of goods. They think of that asset base, the big house, the cars. Man, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot of the failure.
Well, and that fulfillment.
Yeah, sorry, that's better. I looked at the word failure, but it is. It's getting over those failures.
Yeah, that's totally it. Is going, okay, I kind of put myself out in a situation that a lot of people would think is crazy, and I made it work. Like, like that builds a little bit of something, and that's fulfilling, and going, oh, look what I learned along the way, and like. I mean, I look back, put me the beginning of 2021, like, I was probably, I was like, what in the world are we thinking? Now a year later, it's like, this is great. Yeah. Like 2021 was the best year of my life.
Yeah.
And going to get even better. It's just exciting when you figure out I can get in a tough spot. I can come out ahead. I learned a lot, I mean, it's just, it's totally failure. It's cool. Failing and then overcoming it, and so it's fun.
And that's what creates the fulfillment. I mean, for really, sure. if everything, it's so cliche, but if everything was easy and we were just successful easily, it wouldn't mean anything. Like, none of it would mean anything. So, when we're talking how to get yourself in the spot to make these changes, whether that's moving from one job to another or from a job to a business, messing up is good. Maybe you've overextended yourself and like, oh crap, I've got to get a part-time job for 2 months to make it work. You learn something. Like everything we do is just something to learn from, and it's not going to feel like it in the moment. It's going to feel like failure, and then 5 years later you're going to go, oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, and that's how it worked out.
Yeah, and it's just it's so interesting because looking forward, we think problems are so huge.
Yeah.
And then we overcome it and we get past it and we're like, that really wasn't that big of a deal. Like, look at how much I've grown or whatever, I don't know. But there again, it goes back to the individual. It's such a personal thing to know how much can you bite off, how I don't know, I guess I don't know what the word is, but how everybody's different in their tolerance of risk or in their tolerance of how big their dream is or how big their goals are, how big their vision is. And it's just, it's hard to kind of say a blanket statement of this is the way that you should do it. I don't know.
But like you had said, stack a little bit of cash, like have a buffer. That's smart. We can't just always jump in the water and hope that we can swim. Like have that little buffer there.
Yeah.
And that buffer is going to be different for different people. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a month. I don't know, but that's smart. Stack some cash, have a buffer. And then even before we've done that, maybe part of how we're stacking that cash is beginning that business, getting the stuff together, getting the LLC set up, doing some marketing, figure it out, get a couple clients, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Allow some of that cash to flow a little bit. And then it's a lot easier to jump in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even, and probably before that too, there's basic money principles that you kind of got to have nailed down, I mean, have a budget, know what your monthly expenses are, do a forecast for 12 months and know what you're going to need over the, if you're getting ready to really dive in and start something, or move into something up, have, figure out what it is for 12 months and see how much cash you could stack. Could you get 12 months worth of cash in savings or something? I mean, I know that that's tough, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah.
And as you kind of think through that, maybe you think it's impossible. Like, oh my goodness, there's no way I can get $50,000 to put down, to have as a safety net. Well, once you start thinking about that, your brain will probably come up with ways to get that put away.
Very true.
And then, which I think having 6 months or a year, I mean, I don't know, a year is maybe excessive, but having some of that just as a general rule is smart for all of us anyway.
Yeah. It's nice on the mind, if you know that you have a whole year that you can mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the flip side, maybe if you only give yourself a month, you're going to work a lot harder. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But I think there's some of those basic principles that, have a budget, have some savings, be frugal, especially if you're thinking about these kinds of things, and try to get to that point, figure out yourself. Are you wanting to ease into something? Are you to a point where you just want to, burn the boats and start? I mean, all these things are a little bit different for everybody depending on where they're going to be at.
Yeah.
But I think in all of those, the common denominator in all of those is there's huge ways to grow, going through all of that, whether you're starting a side hustle, whether you're jumping into something new entirely, however you go about it, there's so many ways to grow. And through that growth, I think is where the fulfillment comes in, is learning that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And knowing right off the bat that you're not going to know. And that's okay. That's the whole point of all of this, is to learn. It seems so simple after starting a few businesses, but just kind of some of those first steps of what do we even need to do here? What do we need to figure out? And really it's any variable that could come up, and it's any expense, and it's any asset. It's anything that needs to be purchased for the business, the land, the building, the inventory, you kind of, it, you understand it, but someone who's just barely coming into it, what do I do? How do I get a name locked in? You're like, name locked in? What do you mean? Well, I don't want someone to take my name, my business name. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. There's just things that as time goes on, you just learn them all.
Yeah.
Which is probably, if anyone's listening and they have a thought about what business they want to start, maybe none of that even makes sense because I was thinking one specific business.
Mm-hmm.
It is very individualized.
Yeah.
But people just, if you want to do it, you also just have to make it happen.
Well, and I think that's an important point because, people might look at, each of us has had a couple business and they might go, oh, well, you guys know how, you know exactly what to do and it's easy for you because you've done it before and stuff. Like there's the, like forming a business, an LLC or, setting up some of that kind of stuff, like the kind of the framework of the business or whatever those steps are. There's kind of generic steps for each business. You got to get a name, you got to get a business entity, you got to register with the state, whatever. Past that, every business is completely different. Like anybody, like the business I started a business this last year. I had as much knowledge when I started off with that as the guy sitting next to me at the stoplight.
Yeah.
And I don't know who he was. So he wasn't some big, investor or whatever. But,
you figured it out.
So that's the cool thing. And the exciting thing is anybody can do it. If I can do it, if I can figure it out, I know the steps of setting up a website. And actually I didn't. I learned that on this last one. I created our own website because I, wanted to and didn't want to wait for somebody to do it. So I just did it. So I learned that. I'd never done that before, but we'd done like setting up the business structures and that kind of stuff. That's all pretty simple, but the rest of it, you just figure out.
Yeah. I think that's the fun part. See, that's the part that gets me fired up and excited. The part that is also kind of scary, the complete unknown, but someone knows it and it's obviously working for someone. So why isn't it working for me? Just means I need to learn more.
Yeah.
So the website thing that brings me back to regional rock walls when we first started the rock climbing gym. Just, we need a website. We can't pay anyone to do it. We don't have any money. Okay. Figure it out.
Yeah.
How do we get on Google? I don't know. How to get a listing on Google. Oh, okay. Figured that out. It just all comes.
And now to sit down and do, like with the website thing, like at first I was like, oh, this is like, I hate this, and my wife's pretty good with that kind of stuff. So I'm like, why don't you just do that? And she's like, no, I don't have time. You figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, I was kind of forced to do it for myself, which it sounds kind of funny, but I had a dry throat for a minute.
It's COVID.
No kidding. But after like 30 minutes, I was like, oh, like I know. And she's like, oh yeah, no, I know a better way to do it. Like it doesn't take that long to learn stuff. When you just buckle down and do it, it really, really doesn't.
So you get 30 minutes into that and you're like, dang, I can start charging people to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're paying a graphic guy how much, to do that stuff. Like, I'll just do it,
Yeah.
And it gets to a point to where you're like, no, just, I've got more important things to do. Just pay the people, But when you're starting out, do as much of that stuff as you can, just so you understand it and you can have fun,
sure.
learning it, just getting in the habit of learning.
Yep.
So.
And then you also have a basic understanding of everything that is going on with your business. So we used to do literally everything. Mm-hmm. We did the bookkeeping and we cleaned and we did all the maintenance. We did everything.
Yep.
So now if something pops up, it's like, oh, I know if that's something I can tackle or if it's something that I need to delegate off to somebody else. And you can kind of know inherently, like, hey, I spent too much time doing this, so I'm going to delegate that because my time is more valuable in another direction or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I would never know that if I didn't spend a lot of time doing it on my own.
And I wonder if that's some of the answers that people are looking for, when they're looking at starting a new business or something like, oh, well, how much time do I spend, some of those things. And there's not an answer for a lot of them. It's just, you just have to get in it and do it. And there's no right answer. It's depending on if somebody likes to do website design better more than me, they might spend more time doing that in their business than I'm going to doing something else, driving a tractor or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, that's the cool thing, is you can take that and shape it however you want.
Yeah.
To do what you enjoy and get that fulfillment. It all comes back to that.
It's a movie, but Mr. Deeds, remember that movie with Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
Such a great movie. He talks about his uncle and how, and it's a totally fictitious, it's all fiction and everything, but he's like, my uncle, before he became a billionaire, he wanted to be a DJ when he was in high school. So eventually he bought a radio station and he would go in and DJ early on in the morning. And it's like, although that's totally fictitious, like, yeah, maybe you can't hit the lifestyle that you want with a DJ salary right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just means you need to buy a radio station so you can give yourself some hours.
Yeah.
It really could be, the sky is the limit on all of this.
Yeah.
And it's funny to tackle these kind of small issues that pop up each day in business. And then after 5 years, you look back and you're like, I'm so glad all of that happened. So glad I took my time to build that website or whatever it was. Because really, you just learn from all of it. That's what all this is. It's just learning. You and I are learning on the podcast stuff right now. Other people are learning on how to start whatever they're starting. We're all learning on relationships and driving in the snow and whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just all learning.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we maybe lose that, I think kind of with the education that, system and just kind of how society's set up. It's like, and I know I was this way, like I got done with college and I was like, sweet, I won't have to do any more learning for the rest of my life, and it's just not true. Like, and some people do, I guess,
for sure.
I shouldn't say that, because some people do stop learning. They just turn it off and that's it. But the people that are the highest achievers are the ones that are learning the most new stuff, like we talk about Elon Musk a lot. Yeah. But nothing, the answers did not exist before he did a lot of the things that he is doing. Yeah. Like,
did he finish college?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. Nor do I care. I mean, I obviously care enough to ask, but like,
I would bet he didn't, like, I don't think Bill Gates did. I don't think, most of the high achievers don't, we've talked about it on here before, the Daniel Mack guy on TikTok, where he goes around and like asks all the people driving expensive cars what they do for a living. And he asks a lot of them if they graduate from college, and a lot of them are like, no, I dropped out halfway through and pursued my business or whatever,
Yeah. I was on there the other day and I was scrolling through. I was like, I didn't know OnlyFans was such a thing. A vast majority of the people that he was on there.
You mean Daniel Mack was interviewing people and a lot of it was...
Oh, maybe I'm thinking Daniel Mack's a different person. Kid on TikTok that goes and he's like, hey, what do you do for a living? And he's filming them.
Yeah. So a lot of the people on there were OnlyFans?
A lot of the ladies were. And it's funny because they wouldn't just say it initially. It was the passenger that was like, no, you tell them what you really do. And she's like, I'm a social media influencer. And they're like, no, you tell her I have an OnlyFans account. And she's like driving a Ferrari. Like, holy crap, I didn't know this was such a thing, but apparently it is a thing. But it is interesting watching that. And the diversity of careers that's in all of that. Yeah. Hey, what do you do for a living? I inherited all this from my dad. Okay, cool. Hey, what do you do for a living? I'm an artist. Yeah. Like, okay, you're an artist driving a Maserati. What kind of artist are you? And where did that start? In his basement, in his garage. Yeah. Started with him being like, I wonder how I form an LLC. I mean, that's where it all starts. Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And I think that's cool too, that you're bringing up the diverse, like there's people on there that are real estate, medical, tech, investors. I mean, you name it, you know,
pot dealers.
Yeah.
They're like, I sell marijuana. Like, oh, like medical grade? Sure.
Yeah.
And we always advocate for legal, moral, and ethical. So
And it's probably in California.
Yeah,
So it's all
yeah,
free
probably.
game anyway,
Yeah.
where they're asking these people. But I think that goes to show there's no right answer in exactly what industry you have to do, what business you have to start, any of it. Like there's success and there's opportunity. We talked about this last time on the podcast. Like there's opportunity now that didn't even exist even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
If somebody's, I was talking the other day with another one of our friends, and he was we were talking about kind of government regulation and free enterprise, and like how there's he brought up the point that there's got to be a point there somewhere, and he brought up like the like back in the early 1900s or something, when people would work for the company, they would live in company housing, they would shop at the company store, they would use a company currency or whatever, so that they could totally control them. And he's like, well, there's got to be some point for government so that kind of stuff doesn't happen. And where I agree, there's got to be a point somewhere. But in our day and age, I understand that was bad and whatever, and there was a need for government to come in and break that kind of stuff up. But today, there's so many opportunities that people can do that for themselves. Like if they don't like what they're doing or where they're at or the situation they're in or whatever, you can go and start an OnlyFans account. I mean, I'm not saying to do that, but there is, that's only one example. You can, you can do woodwork on YouTube. Like I've watched some of these YouTube
jars, like you said a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. But like on YouTube, like I always get like caught with the hydraulic press channels. Have you ever watched those?
Those are amazing.
I love those.
And they make bank.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. The woodworking ones where they're like using I don't even know what that's called, where it spins the wood.
Oh, a lathe?
Yeah, like a lathe. And then they like these big, huge knot root things, and they make these beautiful things out of them.
Yeah.
Those guys are, that same friend we were talking, and he just bought a dirt bike from a guy that started making like fifth wheel hitch adapters or something for like fifth wheel trailers, and selling them on Amazon. And then now he's got 3 employees. Awesome. He was telling, he was saying, he's like, my employees do pretty much everything. I don't really do much anymore. I just kind of manage the business. And that guy started that in his garage and then started selling that on Amazon.
Yep.
Makes a full-time income for himself and livings for 3 other families, and his employees. And so just the amount of opportunity there is out there right now is incredible.
Yeah. And at any point, those employees, if they feel like they're not getting treated how they should, they can have an open communication with that boss. And if the boss doesn't want to have it, or they're not satisfied with their job, they can go do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of talking about that. I rarely engage on I think I told you this earlier, rarely engage on social media, but someone had posted something about a government entity, and so I just kind of hopped on, and they brought up kids in coal mines, working in coal mines, and I'm like, all right. So I started to look into it a little bit. Like, I'm just curious because I don't want to come back with some blind answer. Statistically, very few kids like actually worked in coal mines. And then when you get looking into the coal mines and the companies and all of that stuff, some regulation here and there is great. But really, at any point, any of those people, I'm generalizing, could have left to another company, and it's the same as today, only so much more opportunity, like you were saying. Like the sky is the limit. You have a phone that's connected to billions of people. People are making money doing things that you never, ever would have thought possible, and it's all connected on Amazon. So you sell it.
It's cool. Like it's cool, and it's like, well, I don't know how to do that. That's the part you get to learn. Like
interestingly, YouTube exists where you can learn to do anything.
The amount of education we have available to us is incredible too.
Yeah, we just hired a kid who in his interview we asked him about college, because we live in a college town, and he's like, I decided to drop out of college, and I was like, sweet, let's dive here. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And it was just fun. He's like, honestly, it's not my thing. And the more that I look out into the business world, I actually want to use this position as a catalyst and to learn and he was just super honest about it. He was pretty much like, I'm going to learn this business to go start another business. And I'm like, hired.
Yeah.
Like, that's ambition. That's thinking for yourself. That's so different than what we're taught. I loved it.
Yeah. And I think too, as business owners and employers and that kind of thing, we should be happy when our people want to move on to do something else.
Yep.
Like, and we should build it. Really, it should probably be our goal to build them to a point where they could do that.
Yeah.
Now, the incentive is make a good enough workplace that they don't want to go somewhere else, and that kind of thing. But, I see a lot of employers and stuff too, that you move on to something else and they get all bent out of shape. And it's like,
should have provided more.
Yeah.
If possible. And if not, be excited for your people.
Yeah.
We had a coach that just went and started another gym, and we were happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's awesome, man. Like, that's your dream. That's what you've always wanted to do. And honestly, like, in the world that we live in right now, paying a coach, if that's going to be their full-time gig, it's tough. Like, we pay people as much as we possibly can, but it's not probably going to be the living that someone wants to live. So when he's able to go out and make that happen, good. And everyone else who's coaching, using it as kind of a part-time deal and honing their skills and all, like, everyone has their different ways that they want to take things.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Yeah.
The world works when we let it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much. I mean, I'm always amazed at what people come up with, like on YouTube, I get sometimes sucked in. I try not to.
Yeah.
But like I watch some of that stuff and I'm just like, it is so incredible. The creative, like I never would have thought of that in a million years. Like that is so cool that they came up with that or whatever. And it doesn't even have to be something new. It could be a new way of doing something old. I mean, even if somebody doesn't know, say they're wanting to get into an industry or a business and they're like, oh, well, I don't have 20 years of experience like that guy has. Well, you coming in and being naive and doing it a new way and figuring it out for yourself, you're probably going to find new ways and a different way to run that kind of a business that's going to help a different kind of people than that guy with the 30 years of experience in the industry's doing it anyway.
Yeah.
You'll have a completely different perspective on that, the way that you do it and everything.
That's cool. I like that.
And so it's I don't know. It's just it's cool to see what people come up with.
Yeah. I like looking at it from that view too. Someone coming in that doesn't have the years of past, and we could even say indoctrination, that when they pop in, they see everything from a completely new perspective. Little off subject, but that book that I'm reading, that Empire of Pain. Yeah. And really the original doctors that the Sanger family, they were psychiatrists, and they went to work in these big, huge psychiatric wards. Like they used to just send people to mental hospitals. Yeah. And they get in and they're like, there's a lot of people in mental hospitals. I think this is wrong. What can we do about it? Well, they were able to create a psychiatric medication. I'm not saying that it's all good, but they were able to create one. And then they actually kind of went against the psych wards, and they're like, look, you guys are just creating communities of people instead of teaching them to live on their own. You're just making money off of them. Mm-hmm. So they fight it, they combat it, but they weren't of that world. That world 30 years previous was just put everyone in a psychiatric hospital and call it good. Yeah. They come in and they're like, no, it needs to be done different. There's something wrong here. We can solve this a different way. Yeah. Yeah. Totally new perspective. Cool. And that's just how stuff evolves, Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool to see that. So I think if somebody's out there thinking, well, I don't have the experience or whatever to do that. Good. Yeah. Great. You will probably come up with
the best idea because you don't have the indoctrination or of
the bias, whatever that ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
Both.
Yeah, both.
The indoctrinational bias.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So people just need to be open to knowing there's going to be a lot of change when they're making that transition. But they can also take some steps to maybe minimize some of the fear, some of the reluctance. And that would be stack some cash, be smart with it, create a budget. You might need to minimize your lifestyle a little bit temporarily, totally fine. Whether that's, you don't have to, but you can kind of sacrifice whatever you want. Vehicles, snowmobiles, house, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just temporarily to get into a position where you can make the change, and sacrifice can bring a lot of happiness.
Yeah. And bigger benefits down the road.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. No, I like that. I think that's great.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, I appreciate today. That's fun. There's kind of some anonymity a little bit in what we do, like when we're working with specific people.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to talk about them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just like complete transparency. I need to figure out how to talk about them without talking about them, because there's so much today that I'm like, oh, like here's a current example of something that's going on, but
yeah,
they're like kind of keeping it all secret right now while they're starting the business. And
well, the cool thing is we can help them get successful in that and then have them on an interview.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
in 6 months from now, it's like, all right,
yeah.
Now everyone can know, but it's kind of fun. So
cool.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for today.
Yeah, thank you. It was good.
See you next week.
See ya.